So we go from dying really fast here by Carl to becoming an invincible Titan even when we're 50 power level below. I will show that gameplay in a second for you. Titans, you guys got it so good with Prismatic, you just don't know it yet. But that's what I'm here for. Now I got rid of my Transcendent and my awesome new super on purpose here. I want you guys to watch how fast we get Transcendent and how fast we get our super. Just from this first group of about 7 enemies, even when we're 15 power level under here, we get our full darkness bar filled and over half of our light bar. We also get close to half of our super. Then if you watch our health bar up top, this whole time we only dip to half health one single time. The rest of the time we never go below 90%. And you're really going to see the true power of this build in the negative 50 power level content that should be on screen any second now. We throw 3 supers in 5 minutes, and hopefully you all know how fun the new super is on the Titan. I feel like Kratos out here. We also pop Transcendent 4 times in 5 minutes, and the Titan grenade is so strong with its Jolt, Suspend, and damage. So if you run this build in any easier content, and I'm talking like negative 15 or negative 20 power level, you will just walk through it as the unkillable Prismatic Titan. Now the most important thing is how we can survive the onslaught of damage that we take. Thunderclap is our melee of choice, and it got a nice damage reduction buff and an overall damage buff of around 30% when you fully charge your melee. So when you charge that Thunderclap, you take less damage, and I mean way less. I honestly didn't think it was going to be this good, and you also deal way more damage with the melee ability. So Lightning Surge Warlock, here I come. Our second source of damage reduction is from the fragment Facet of Protection. When enemies are near, we get even more damage reduction. Next we add Amplified from our Thunderclap melee. One single kill with it will make us amplified. Then we add the artifact mod to that, which is Galvanic Armor. While amplified on Prismatic, we take reduced damage from enemies. Then make sure to get 100 resilience on your stats for even more damage reduction. Then to top all of our damage reduction off, we take the new super Twilight Arsenal. It's an absolute blast, does great damage and weakens enemies, and make sure to pick those axes up for a fun time. But we pair this super with Facet of Purpose. When we pick up an Orb of Power, we get a Void Overshield. We make an Orb of Power from every single Thunderclap punch that we land, and it just falls right in front of us. So you can easily have a full Void Overshield up, and that Overshield will also increase our melee damage later on. So we have Charging Thunderclap, Facet of Protection, Amplified with Galvanic Armor, 100 Resilience, and Void Overshields. 5 total ways to mitigate the damage we take. Then we add healing on top of any health we might have lost. Our first aspect we take is Knockout, and it got a nice buff this season. And for every enemy we kill, we heal from that. It's about 30 HP for a red bar enemy, and moves up from there, with multiple red bars giving you a full heal from one Thunderclap. Then the Orb of Power that drops will also heal us with the recuperation mod on our boots. Knockout also gives us a nice bump in our melee damage, and this buff is up for 7 seconds. Once that 7 seconds is up, your next Thunderclap ability will trigger it again. And since we're always using this, it's basically like you always have it up. On your class ability, I do like to take Thruster. It gives you some nice mobility when you're in the thick of things. And then I like to pair this build with Shackle Grenade. You can lead with the Shackle Grenade and easily close the gap for a big Thunderclap. Also, Shackle Grenade feeds that darkness meter a ton when you suspend a bunch of different enemies. And then for your second aspect to pair with Knockout, we take Diamond Lance. Any ability kills that you get, which we're always doing with Thunderclap, will spawn a Diamond Lance. This does have about a 6 or 7 second cooldown, but every time you see a lance, pick it up, and that can also lead you into your next Thunderclap, because you can freeze a group of enemies with it and then unleash the Thunderclap. You also get bonus melee damage when you do Thunderclap a frozen target. Now for the rest of the fragments, we already went over Facet of Protection and Facet of Purpose. We're going to add in Facet of Ruin. This increases the size and damage from our Stasis Diamond Lance and when we shatter those enemies. Then we add in Facet of Courage. Your Arc, Solar, and Void abilities deal increased damage to targets afflicted with darkness debuffs. So our Thunderclap melee will do more damage to frozen enemies or suspended enemies, which means we even take advantage of this in our Transcendence. And then lastly, we take Facet of Justice. While Transcendent, your ability final blows explode. If you guys have seen the gameplay where you see the big arc explosion happen while I'm Transcendent from my Thunderclap, that's from this fragment. Now you do get that electrified snare grenade when you are Transcendent, and like I mentioned earlier, it is so strong with the Suspend, Jolt, and the detonation damage it does. And since we can spam our Thunderclap melee even in Transcendence, you're gonna get that grenade coming back so fast. So make sure you're chucking them out. Now for our exotic of choice, it's an old faithful that's been around forever, and that is Insurmountable Skull Fort. The perk it provides is kills with arc melee abilities, trigger health regeneration, and instantly give us our powered melee back. So now we have infinite Thunderclap, and we trigger health regeneration, and we still heal for those chunks of health that we already went over earlier. This is how you run around and just spamming your melee left and right. Now there are a few things that increase your damage. Remember, I already went over Knockout, how that increases your melee damage. When you hit a frozen target, that increases your melee damage. When we use Facet of Courage, that's another source of melee damage. And then we use the 2 artifact perks. One is Shield Crush. While we have a Void Overshield, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage. I believe this one is about a 25% damage buff, so it's great. And our Grenade recharges faster and deals more damage when we're amplified or radiant, which we are both all the time. So it makes your Transcendent Grenade hit hard. Then we add in Transference, gain increased grenade and melee damage while Transcendent, and Radiant Orbs. While you have a Solar or Prismatic subclass, picking up an Orb of Power makes you Radiant to allow our weapons to hit 25% harder. And we already went over Galvanic Armor. Make sure you have those 4 artifact mods on. Now to get super gains coming back very quickly, on our helmet we take triple hands on. I want that Twilight Arsenal coming back as often as possible. I want to be able to throw those axes, I want to pick them up and go to town with them, because it's so fun to do. On our gauntlets, we take 3 copies of Heavy Handed. So every melee kill that we land with Thunderclap will spawn an Orb of Power. And you know how important an Orb of Power is to builds this season. On our chest piece, that's just your damage reduction mods, so match whatever activities you're doing. On the boots, you can either go with weapon surges or feed into abilities with Orbs of Power. I like Recuperation for health on Orb of Power, Innervation for grenade cooldown on an Orb of Power, and Absolution for more grenade cooldown and thruster cooldown on an Orb of Power. On the class item, I take 2 bombers to feed that grenade even more when we use our thruster, which I needed to use it more often. And then the last slot can either be Reaper or Special Finisher. I was actually running double special with this build, so it was nice to have Special Finisher and spend my 3 armor charges on a finish, and I paired that with the Call in my primary because it's an awesome rocket sidearm, and Buried Bloodline in my secondary so I could add Devour to the build. I hope you tie-ins out there enjoyed this video. I hope it makes Prismatic more fun for you, since I have seen some negative reviews on the tie-in. Also, check out the Mobalytics link below and go favorite this build for me, because it really helps out. And if you haven't seen my last Hunter or Warlock video, they will both be on the screen for you to click on. They're both great builds, and I highly urge you to take a look and enjoy them for yourselves. Thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Have a great rest of your day.